Daniel, where the hell are you coming in from today? Where are you? I'm trying to look. What's the background there? It kind of looks like
So
Caesars.
yeah, it's sunny Las Vegas. I'm in. Good question. I'm in one of the casinos somewhere. Well, Google
Okay.
next, Mandalay Bay.
All right. You don't even know where you are. Okay. Welcome, Daniel. Daniel's the chief AI officer at WPP and the CTO of Satalia. And I think, Daniel, your path to WPP was via acquisition. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I actually the CEO of Satalia. So I started Satalia about 17 years ago, which been building AI solutions for some of the biggest companies in the world. So I've been in AI for a long time, actually 25 years. I sold that to WPP, the biggest marketing company in the world, 3 years ago. Despite knowing nothing about marketing, I still like to claim I know nothing about marketing because it allows me to ask stupid questions. But I'm responsible for coordinating AI across 120,000 people. I'm still the CEO of Satalia. Think of Satalia as being WPP's deep mind. And I've just started a company to solve machine consciousness. So if we want to go very deep today, we can.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Let's try. Let's try. Let's. Well, we at Section we do something, Daniel. We call high low. We like to go high low in our conversations, in our thinking. What that means is, we want to go high strategically. Fly at 20, 30,000 feet. Then we like to go low, like get on the ground, right? Roll up sleeves, get shit done, and talk about what's really going on. So we'll kind of probably, we'll do both today. Moving between those two altitudes. It sounds like solving machine consciousness would be high. So hopefully we'll have time for that. I want to start, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you and wanted our audience to be able to hear you is that I know you're in boardrooms a lot, in C-suite and sort of in the conversations at that level. So just give us all a sense of what's the last month look like for you, like where you've been, who you've been talking to.
So I know you asked that question just before this call, but I literally had to look at my calendar. I've been on 16 flights over the past 4 weeks, 10 of which have been long haul. So starting out 4 weeks ago, I did a board tour of Silicon Valley. So WPP's board went out there speaking to Meta, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Andreessen Horowitz, really just to get a lay of the land in terms of how Silicon Valley is thinking about AI, what's the trajectory of these technologies. I spent a little bit of time in Napa. WPP hosted a TED-like conference. It sort of rivals TED. Brings together some unique people. Paris Hilton was there, so getting kind of insights from a whole range of different diverse people. I was in Lisbon presenting to the CEOs of the largest organizations in Lisbon, again trying to understand what's top of their mind with respect to the changing markets, how AI is playing into that. New York twice over 2 days. Mumbai. So again, looking at how talent is developing in Mumbai, the direction that they're going. Milan, Vienna, now in
Okay, all right, I got it. This is
Los
good. This
Angeles.
is good. This is good. Besides, hopefully you're 1K or 10 or whatever it is. I don't know whatever. Hopefully I've got good status. Let's go back to Silicon Valley. So you've just done a tour in Silicon Valley. It's obviously where I live. What was your take, leaving those meetings in terms of those conversations with the tech vendors? And specifically around, maybe let's talk about the acceleration of AI in terms of capabilities, not the deployments, but the capabilities. What was your vibe? Are they tapping out? Or the models kind of fatiguing, or did you get a sense they're confident in their ability to kind of push forward in terms of capabilities?
Well, I think so. I don't want to sound immodest, but my job is to try to understand the future. And if anything's a surprise to me, then I'm not doing my job properly. So I'd like to think that nothing was really a surprise in terms of their roadmap. And the way that I'm seeing the trajectory of AI, at least large language models, is that arguably a few years ago they behaved like intoxicated graduates. They were very confidently wrong a lot of the time. We're now starting to see them graduate to like a master's level, so being able to do reasoning. In the next 12 months, we're probably going to see PhD level, so being able to break complex problems down, solve those problems. Another 18 months, I expect us to have the science, be able to do, a postdoc level, be able to actually do science, apply the scientific method. And it's projected by the end of this decade. And most people seem to agree that we might see AGI by the end of this decade, where we have a professor in our pocket, a professor that's able to go out there, identify his own hypotheses and solve them. Obviously, agentic AI was a hot topic. How do we embody, put wrappers around these capabilities and have them augment the digital workforce? And what does that mean in terms of its impact on jobs? All the way through to how the current tariffs and things like that are affecting cultures and dynamics between different countries.
Okay, so let's. So you're pretty confident, and you weren't surprised because you're in this all day long, I guess, all over the world. But we're not slowing down. The pace of these capabilities is. We should believe the pundits, the ones who are proposing this is coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think as you know, one of the biggest challenges is not necessarily the technology, it's how quickly we can adopt the technology. What are the changes in organizational structure, behaviors do you need to actually embrace these technologies? What tends to happen is every time there's a new exciting technology, we then apply that technology to solving the wrong problems. 8, 10 years ago, it was data lakes, it was machine learning, it was data science. Now it's generative AI. What happens is we try and then apply those technologies to the wrong problems. We blame the technologies, but the reality is people are not very good at applying the right technologies to the right problems. So my job is to make sure that we're placing the right bets. But the fact is that these technologies are incredibly capable, and if you apply them in the right way, then it will completely differentiate your business. What was one interesting insight that came from the Andreessen Horowitz conversation, which was those organizations that have system of record, whether it be HR information or I don't know, Salesforce information, whilst they're not necessarily going as fast as a lot of the startups, the fact that those systems of record are sticky means that most likely those organizations are going to be successful. So we see a lot of startups innovating, using these technologies, but because system of record are sticky, we expect the large organizations actually to overtake them eventually. That was an interesting insight.
Yep, yep. Okay, let's just put a fine point on this, and then we'll move on. So I wake up every day, and I either read Gary Marcus, a friend of Section, we've interviewed him, and or Mo Gadat, a friend of Section, we've chatted with him. One is like Gary Marcus and other AI critics. These things, don't perform well. They hallucinate. They're basically, full of shit. And then Mo Gadat's like, in 5 years, we're gonna have a hard time finding a knowledge worker job. That's what he said yesterday. Where are you on that continuum, or how should we interpret these so-called pundits in terms of these timelines?
So again, I think the trajectory of the technology and how quickly we adopt them are two different things. And so I do expect that by the end of this decade, we will have incredibly capable technologies. Again, how quickly we adopt them, how quickly it will impact our workforce, how we organize ourselves is a different question. I guess, there are two extremes of the argument in terms of how these technologies will affect their workforce. I guess, for the past 17 years and probably for the next 5 years, what I've seen is AI replacing mundane, repetitive tasks. Those people have not lost their jobs. They've gone on to do more important, impactful things. I think, honestly, beyond 5 years, nobody knows what they're talking about. And the one kind of perspective is, if AI can free up whole jobs, we probably will. The capitalistic model to reduce costs, increase profits means we probably stop hiring or we remove people. If that happens very quickly, our economies might not be able to rebalance, and it could lead to social unrest. And I genuinely think that that's a risk that we need to lean into, whether it be 4-day working week or universal basic income, I don't know. The other extreme of the argument is that, this is a bit controversial, but removing friction usually means removing human labor. And that's what organizations are trying to do. They're trying to remove friction from the creation and dissemination of their goods. If that happens, again, very quickly and very well, you can bring the cost of goods down to essentially almost zero. So imagine being born into a world where we might not be able to access paid work, but everything that we need to survive and thrive as a species is free. Our food, our healthcare, our energy, our transport. So I'm not talking about, socialism. I'm not talking about taxing rich people and giving it to poor people. I'm talking about using our smarts to bring the cost of goods down to almost zero, which I think actually is a very exciting world. It's a world where people then can contribute to humanity however they want.
So you're buying into the possibility of this kind of era of abundance, this idea.
I would like, what gets me out of bed is abundance. And the reason why, I engage with these talks is because I think if we can empower decision makers, the people are on this call today, with making the right decisions about applying these technologies, not just the right in terms of removing frictions, but the safe and responsible use of these technologies, then I believe in the collective power of humanity, that we actually will make the right decisions and create that world of abundance. Again, I'm hopeful, but who knows? It's down to all of us.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to Silicon Valley then, because in terms of like how much agency we're going to have, right? In terms of what unfolds, where are you on this idea that AI is going to be like utility, and and maybe like the airline industry, where it's a really great good, right? It's an amazing utility for consumers, for all of us, but a shitty business, versus this idea that we'll have 2 or 3 insanely profitable, insanely influential AI companies that will make Amazon and Meta kind of look like child's play by comparison. And when you think about if they really achieve like 1 billion or 2 billion active users, where we're outsourcing, kind of our critical thinking to, like, where are you on that continuum, Daniel?
It's really it's a complex problem. It's a complicated question because we are able to now create multi-billion-dollar organizations with a handful of people, because these are incredibly smart and capable technologies, and they are going to get smarter and more capable. How that is going to disrupt, the big tech companies, I don't know. Will the big tech companies out innovate? Will they acquire them? What interests me more is open source. Open source is people don't open source out of the goodness of their hearts. They open source because it's actually a very sage commercial model. It gives you access to, it grabs the market. It gives you access to talent. It gives you access to data. And so what's interesting is there's a capitalistic model to open source means that these technologies are becoming free to everybody. And I don't see that slowing down unless the models start to kind of plateau, and then the organizations kind of figure out how to start to commercialize them properly. I think as long as they are continuing to improve in capability, I think they will continue open sourcing them. Again, I don't know what the world looks like when in 5 years' time we all have a professor in our pocket, somebody that we can command to go and build innovations very, very quickly.
So you're unsure if we have a handful of winners or a bunch. I mean, at this point, I'm just asking, as you're not, or you're saying we might have a bunch, like open source is going to win. So ironic, we might be betting on Mark Zuckerberg to save us, a guy who doesn't care about the health of our society.
Well, open source, again, ironically, gives people those tools that can go and build innovations that might out innovate Meta. So, right. It's a very obviously it's awesome to see what Google are coming out with here at Next, and the trajectory that Microsoft and those other technology companies are going. But what I'm seeing are small organizations, startups with a handful of people building incredible companies and creating incredible value.
Yep. Let's go back. Let's go into the boardroom now. And I think that was part of your Lisbon trip. Just tell us, share with us what is going on. What are boards and C-suite talking about these days? Where are we in their thinking? We're probably through all the hype of the last 18, 20. There's still lots of hype, but we're probably through peak hype. Where are we now? And are they getting real? Are they backing that up with real capital investments and teams and so on? Just give us a sense of what's going on.
Yeah, I think the past few years have sort of woken people up to the possibility, the capability of these technologies. And what I've been heartened about is boards understanding, the capability of these technologies. They don't necessarily understand the trajectory, which is one of the things I help them with. But what they've realized now is that if they want to make this work, they need to have scalable infrastructure that enables them to utilize AI across their organization and use agents across their organization. So we're seeing now, a platformization or a need for platformization of AI, and that those AIs are not just being used to remove and address frictions across their supply chain, but they're being used to augment the workforce. So they're starting to think about now, what does it mean to have digital employees? How do we govern them? How do we give them the right responsibilities? And how do we get digital employees working with real employees? What does that look like? So that's what they're thinking about, and what technologies do they need to bet on? I think most of them are currently still looking at productivity. How do we write faster emails, prettier PowerPoint slides? As far as I'm concerned, whilst that will unlock productivity, it won't differentiate your business. So I try and encourage organizations to think about, where can you apply AI that's going to be genuinely differentiated for your supply chain, that's going to differentiate your business from the next. Yep. And that's what I want to see more of.
Well, let's stop there for a moment and talk about this idea of productivity lift. So let's talk about this idea of I'm going to deploy, I'm now talking as a CEO, an LLM, Microsoft Copilot Pro, a paid, full-featured version, not something that's crippled or free or, GPT 3.5. And by the way, we bump into significant companies that are deploying 3.5 to their employees just because they're cheap and don't want to pay, for the upgrade. But let's assume I'm a CEO and I'm looking at writing that check to deploy, and then the training and the change management and all the cultural change that needs to happen. So it's really actually adopted, right? Not just deployed, but adopted. Should I be doing that? Do you argue for or recommend as a starting point, give everybody a great LLM, do all the training and change management? And if you do suggest that, what kind of productivity lift or ROI can, a CEO of a 5,000 person company or whatever, 1,000 person, a decent size org, what are we looking at here, if anything?
Well, I'll let you know how WPP has approached it. So we've created a technological agent builder. We've enabled everybody across our 110,000 people to build agents. Now, the reality is those agents are really just wrappers around LLM. So what they're doing is they're getting LLMs to behave like brand strategists or audience personas, and then human beings are interacting with those agents. What an agent really is an AI that has agency, has the ability to write emails, to be able to operate Jira and the tools that are on your computer. And the reality is that once you give agency ability to have agency, you're then to a whole different realm of responsibility and safety and all that kind of stuff. So what we've done is in WPP, we've enabled people to go and build and understand agents that humans are interacting with. And we have now 28,000 agents operating across WPP. Now, the reality is I don't know what all of those agents are doing. Some of them, they could be 21,000 of the same agent, right? But we do have mechanisms to go and then start to do that analysis. So there's, how do you enable your organization to self-serve in a safe way and to figure out how to use these technologies to augment and enhance their own work? But we also know that there are agents that need to be built that require specialist knowledge and access to specialized data sources like expenses, for example. If I want an agent to look at your expenses and to determine whether they're aligned with policy, then I need to access the policies. I need to access your expenses, which again has privacy and security implications. So what we've done is we've let people self-serve, but we've also gone through a process of identifying what are essentially the frictions that we have across the organization. Forgive me, this is obvious. What are the frictions that we have? Expense, checking is one of them. And is AI or are agents the right tool to solve that friction? Let's not just assume that it is, which currently is what's happening. People are trying to apply these technologies in the wrong way. But let's start with the frictions. And I would argue that most organizations have somewhere between 50 and 500 frictions across their organization. Prioritize those frictions according to value, and then start knocking them off one by one. And it might be that agents are the right solution, or it might be that something else that's the right solution. But always start with the problem.
Okay, I get it, but I'm going to put you on the spot to answer my question. I'm the CEO of a 1,000 person company, and my CTO has come to me, maybe in partnership with my head of people, and said, "Let's buy Microsoft Copilot Pro. We're going to sign a 3-year." In fact, Microsoft's actually offering us a deal. They're going to bundle it into the contract, right? As you would expect them to do, so that they can keep OpenAI out. And should I do this? Should I buy a full-featured LLM and deploy it again with all the training and change management? Is that a good thing for most CEOs to be doing? And will they be happy they did it in a couple of years in terms of general productivity lift? Whether that meant they also build off-the-shelf agents or GPTs, or it sounds like what you're talking about is some version of very lightweight agents. I would call them GPTs if you're a ChatGPT user. Yes or no?
So I think the answer is yes. Yes, I think if you enable your organization to be able to self-serve, to be able to build agents to use AI, I think that's a good thing. They'll probably create duplication. They'll probably use it for the wrong things. But the fact that they're engaging, I think, is positive. But you also need a parallel process to make sure that you have a roadmap of building the right technologies to solving the right problems.
Yeah, no, I really liked your friction kind of framework, or your friction sort of, I guess, criteria for choosing. I think you're right. I think that if you open the aperture, there'll be hundreds, maybe thousands of potential either frictions or use cases, right? And we encourage clients not to close down the brainstorming, but kind of open it, wide, right? And then you're right, you got to go and prioritize. What's been slowing companies down then? So if your answer is yes, and that's my answer, but when we go into these large companies, we hear a story, and these are Fortune 100 companies. They got plenty of money. Yeah, sure, we're in an uncertain economic moment in this moment, but when you think about the cost of their workforces, the cost of their knowledge workforces, we hear stories like, well, we only have 100 paid licenses. Everybody else gets the free co-pilot, or we're deciding who's going to get the LLM, and there's like an application process because like why are they moving so slowly? Like, what's going on?
I'm going to flip the question and say what I think differentiates a company in the age of AI. So I think there are three things that a company needs to get right, and if they don't get this right, then they move slowly. So one, I know this is obvious, which is data. It's data that ultimately makes the AI. It's data that makes the AI smart, and sorry, I've been moved on.
It's all right.
It's data.
Hold on, Daniel. By the way, Maxwell, can we started?
It's data that makes the AI smart, but again, you don't have to wait for your data lake to be there to solve that problem. But you do need to make sure that it's accessible and lockable. The second, honestly, is AI talent. If you don't have differentiated AI talent, you're not going to build differentiated technologies. Over the past 3 years, pretty much everybody's rebranded themselves as an AI expert, and that's fine. You can get away with doing some good things, but if you want to build differentiated solutions, you need to have differentiated talent. And what I see organizations doing is trying to build solutions themselves. One of the things that I ask companies is, have you ever built and deployed software in your organization that's worked? And if the answer is no, you're not going to build AI solutions. You're probably going to have to rely on third parties. And the third one is
that's a great question. I love that question, right? Because you would never think about building a SaaS application internally, right? You'd never build an ERP, you'd never build a CRM or anything like that.
Indeed.
And
I guess a lot like every time there's an emerging technology, people will hire data scientists, or now they hire. And the reality is that they won't hang around for very long, and you end up having tech debt and all that kind of stuff. So don't try and build it yourself. It might be very good for your career for the next 3 years, to say that you've built an AI team, but it's not necessarily the best thing for your business. So be honest with yourself about being able to engage with deep AI talent. I think WPP was fortunate to acquire my company, Satalia, which I like to say that we're WPP's deep mind, and I think I can say that because WPP try and steal my employees. I can't afford to steal them back because I can't afford 5 times their salary. But I'm very honored that DeepMind tried to take my employees. But and the third thing that actually slows things down, and I've already said this, which is leadership. It's the people on this call. If you don't understand about the transformational power of these technologies, if you don't understand how they're going to be developing over the next several years, you place the wrong bets. Now, when generative AI happened, what everybody did was say, "Oh, let's go and train an LLM on our knowledge base." Like, let's go and do that. The fact is, loads of people did that. It's probably not even being used now in your organization. And it's Microsoft and it's Google that will provide that facility in a much better, robust, safe way. So yeah, making sure that leadership are sage and sober about the application of these technologies.
So how do you answer the business case question then? Like, so I hear you, but feels like to me, what's also stalling out some of these deployments is the business cases or the ROIs. It'll be like trying to grab smoke, like where is it? So again, how would you advise a CEO saying, okay, Daniel, I'm all in, I'll deploy the LM, and I'll sort of let loose this organic building agents and all that stuff, and I'll also do some top down, like Tiger team, find the best friction, find the highest frictions and I'll do all that. How should I think about the math? Is there a business case here, or is it like, trust me?
It's a great question. I think it's an important question because so you, first of all, you've got the let's enable the organization to do self-serve, and the reality is that those people won't be doing a business case. They'll be just doing things that they think is exciting for them. But if you've got that list of frictions, then I have a relatively simple brain, and we use this 8 criteria mechanism to prioritize those frictions. So imagine you've got your backlog of frictions. So we then score those frictions on, is the data available, right? And if it's not available, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but if it's not available, it's painful to get it. The second one, what's the cost in solving this problem? Is it just a wrapper around an LLM, or is it a big, complex software build? What's the return on investment if I solve it? Is it cost saving? What's the time to getting to that return? Do I have the team, the talent to be able to build this solution? if I build it, is it reusable elsewhere across the supply chain? Is that component reusable? Is it hypeable? Now, this is really important. If you build something that then captures the hearts and minds of people, that's actually, very valuable for the organization. And then the final one is stakeholders. I need to make sure that all of my stakeholders, from the top, the leadership, to the lives that these people are going to be, affecting, are bought in. If they're not bought in, then it's going to fail. So we've got this eight criteria that we score, we prioritize them, and then start banging them off one by one.
So the second last one was just, you said, is it hypeable?
Hype, yeah. So
yeah, I like
hypeable.
it. I like it. Yeah.
It's so important.
Can you storytell? And you think it's so important in this moment in terms of having those early wins that you can talk about and that you can capture people's kind of attention?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I think most companies, Daniel, want to fast follow. I think most executives want to fast follow, unless they're, there's a few that just culturally, they want to be, first, and they'll take the risk, or they're forced to be first. Maybe AI is presenting such existential risk to them, they kind of have to go first. But I would argue that, a good strategy for an incumbent is to be a very rapid follower. What I hear from execs is that they don't know who to follow because there are so few case studies. So my question to you is why we always, I find at least once a week I'm talking about Moderna as a case study, right? And how well they've done in terms of getting AI deployment and adoption inside their organization. And it's, it's a mid-sized company, right? 5,000-6,000 employees. But we're still talking about Moderna. It's, it's 2 years later. Why are there not more case studies? What's, and this is a problem, I think, because executives want fast follow, right?
It is, and again, I think for me there are broadly three aspects of a business that you can apply these technologies to. So the first is core productivity, and I think that people are realizing is that the infrastructure providers, Microsoft, the Googles, etc., will probably provide that infrastructure and AI to enable you to improve that core productivity. The fact is that even at Google Next, that capability is still just coming, right? It's getting to the point where we're starting to be confident. So there haven't been massive AI transformations at a productivity level, but it is coming. The second is again, I come back to this, which is will AI differentiate my supply chain? And arguably, you might want to fast follow on the first one. You might want to wait to see how other organizations have gone through their transformation, realize those productivity improvements, and then go ahead with your own transformation. But the reality is that if you are in a business where AI is disrupting your business, if you are not first, then you're going to lose out. So I'm in the business of media marketing communications, and what WPP has done is we've created a platform that solves now end-to-end marketing. Now, WPP used to sell time and materials. Now, selling time and materials in a world where AI can do the work hundreds of times faster than a human being is not a good business to be in. So we have to shift our business model from selling time and materials to now licensing enterprise AI solutions. And those companies that get there first are the ones that are ultimately going to win. So in our case, we've had to be the leaders in the platformization of AI and marketing. But we could sort of safely fast follow in terms of infrastructure.
Yeah, and then so why are we getting all this research now that so many pilots are stuck in pilot phase? Is it some of what you already talked about, which is they didn't have the team, they didn't have the data, the prototype looked cool and they kind of went forward and then it was just cool and it wasn't actually I think you've seen the stats, right? Gartner says 70% of AI, pilots are stuck in pilot. Well, how do we avoid that? Anything else you want to give us advice on to avoid that?
Probably had the same numbers 8 years ago when it was machine learning. So the first is building a prototype. First of all, again, is that the right technology to solve that problem? Again, human beings, and we misallocate those technologies, so they fail. But the second is, even if it solves the problem, building in a scalable, repeatable way is hard. You hire data scientists or whatever smart people to go and solve that problem. But then what you need to do is you need to then build it in a scalable way that's maintained and supported. And the reality is that those people, that talent that has built that solution, it's probably taken them a couple of years to build it, and but they'll bugger off. They'll go somewhere else, get higher paid money. So these are the real dynamics that unfortunately organizations are having to deal with.
Yep. I want to go, I want to make it real to us, like us meaning knowledge workers, on the line, if you will. We are resisting and we're anxious. All the research says that anxiety levels are at all-time highs. I think now probably with some economic anxiety as well, based on the last 10 days. But certainly, I think as it relates to AI and the recent Pew research from a couple of weeks ago, just kind of confirm this. And then I contrast that with Toby Luck. Someone leaked his memo, so he sort of talked about it publicly around really embedding AI every day into the operations of that company in terms of what they do every day. My read on that email or that memo was that he's been using AI himself. He's got religion. He's frustrated that his organization, which is not small, right, has probably been moving slower than he wanted, and they're basically going to start to mandate it. Things like it's going to be AI usage is going to be a measurement of your performance review, and that you can't ask for headcount unless you can prove that AI can't do the work that you need the headcount for. So, I sort of congratulate him for being upfront and being direct and being very clear on setting expectations. Probably doesn't help with anxiety, though. Just curious how you think about these levels of anxiety and how do we manage them without, promising what we can't promise. We can't promise no layoffs. We can't promise that jobs won't go away. I think that's deceptive or inauthentic. So how's that balance? How would you walk that line as a CEO?
Well, arguably, our CEO, WPP CEO, has taken exactly the same line, right? So we are an AI first organization. And we're trying to apply it to every aspect of our business. What's been interesting in marketing, again, I'm not a marketing expert, is that technology has disrupted marketing over the past 20, 30 years, whether it be mobile or internet and things like that. And what's happened in marketing is that people have found new jobs. There's been more jobs that have been created in that world because there have been new channels, the world's gone faster, etc. And I think that actually there is a massive opportunity for marketing to improve, better ads, better, targeted ads, more relevant ads that we actually enjoy. And so I think there's a huge amount of opportunity to improve the marketing experience. So I do believe that whilst jobs will be displaced and disrupted, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to grow, particularly in our world. That said, if you solve end-to-end marketing, which does mean removing a lot of jobs, I would argue, at least in the short term, the only differentiator for brands is human creativity. It's how do we unlock and enhance human creativity, using people to come up with crazy ideas that really AIs are not capable of doing. So we're sort of going all in on enhancing and unlocking creativity, the things that we know that AIs are really struggle with. But we do expect jobs to be displaced, but we also do expect new jobs to be created. ChatGPT, LLMs are a new channel for ads. And understanding how to leverage that channel will require different type of experts.
Yeah, I hear you, Daniel. But what I also hear is teams are going to be smaller. So, what is your advice to someone who's on just take a typical B2B marketing team? I don't know, or a software engineering team or a sales team. Doesn't really matter. I don't want to pick on marketing specifically. Yep. But that team's 100 people. It feels like to me that team's going to be 60 or 70 people in a few years. I think that feels to me what's happening.
I think I would align with that. I think generally.
Yeah. So what's your advice to the people on that team? Here's my advice. I'd be curious what you would say. My advice is be in the top half of the team. You're going to have to be a high performer today, right? Like you don't want to be in the bottom third or bottom quarter of performance of a team. It's pretty simple advice. Can you improve on that? Can you do better? What else would you say?
Well, I think that is it's sage advice. I think that so interestingly, those people that are utilizing AI, that are learning to use AI, actually, I would argue is a superpower. So we found that our creatives that have art history backgrounds or understand lighting and photography and aperture, they're able to ask better questions of the AI and get better results. So ironically, having a broad set of knowledge allows you to actually do your job better. I'm rubbish at prompting because all I know about is AI. I literally know nothing about anything else. But I think what I hope to happen is that even if those people are freed up from their jobs, those people will have access to these tools because they're open, because they're abundant, and that they will be many more innovations that are created for people to be able to go and contribute to work on. So we might see a fragmentation of the workplace, so smaller organizations and large organizations shrinking, but many more opportunities for people to be able to contribute. That's why I hope will happen.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think we all do. Daniel, I have felt like this kind of meme, or the cliche, I guess. You won't lose your job to AI. You lose your job to someone using AI. I think it worked for a while. I think it's kind of bullshit though, which meaning we're all going to be using AI, and using AI doesn't make your job that much more secure, right? I think that using your AI in ways that differentiate you and differentiate your work is probably it's going to be a higher bar, frankly, for all of us,
Indeed.
right? Just using AI is not going to be enough. I think it was a cute expression to give us some comfort, in the first couple of years of this revolution or disruption. I just don't think it's very accurate, frankly.
No, maybe if I was to build on that as well, is that just using AI is not good enough. I think I used to get asked this question a lot over the past 5 years, which is, what should my children be learning? What's the superpower
Right.
of the future?
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
typical stock answer is go and learn whatever makes them happy, because it's very hard to predict the future. But what I have sort of found is that those people that have an engineering mindset, those people that can think not just about the happy path, but can think about the failure points, which is a creative process, by the way, those people that can architect complex systems, whether that be people or AIs and people, I think that type of thought mindset, engineering mindset, orchestrating complex systems is probably an important superpower. So I would probably go one level up, which is not just using AI; it's having the ability to actually coordinate and orchestrate complex systems.
Yeah, I love that. We've been thinking about at Section building, some new products around sort of the human skills needed. We've been mostly focused on AI upskilling and AI transformation, so acquiring those new skills. But I think the right way to think about it is in a couple of years, what are the human skills that you need to be really sharp in order to kind of succeed, I guess, in this moment. And that feels like one. I think about it, Danielle, as we're going to have people who outsource to AI. That seems very dangerous to me. So to cognitively offload in a kind of a lazy way, and I call them AI managers. I prefer your just it sounds smarter, and especially in your accent, AI orchestrator, that something like that, right? Those are going to be, I think, the more valuable people, because they're not just sort of outsourcing and shoveling the work off to to the machine. They're actually really orchestrating these different technologies.
Exactly.
Create the output they want, that's higher, hopefully higher quality, of more
And
value.
orchestration is a soft skill in some respects, because as a CEO, as a leadership, we need to take people on a journey. We need to be good at storytelling. So it's not just about orchestrating AIs; it's about orchestrating and getting people excited as well.
So I've got a little bit of a cynical view of agents, and I'd like to get your perspective. One is that big tech or AI tech, the vendors, they like agents in part because they can bypass that employee anxiety, employee resistance. I do feel a lot of AI deployments are stalling. That's our experience when we talk with our clients and prospects, mostly our prospects, because that's what they hire us to help them with, right? How to accelerate deployment. And they're stalling in part, as I said earlier, about because of resistance and employee kind of anxiety. And the second reason is I think it allows them to reset the business model. I think OpenAI did something that was sort of amazing, but now challenging from a business model perspective, which is they set the price of AI at $20 a month, and maybe 25 or 30 for enterprise. But that's not a lot if you think about sort of the kind of revenue that they're probably going to need even to get close to break even. Apparently 125 billion, some number like that, which is sort of insane. So my sense of agents, it's also a way to reset the business model, which is you can tell a CFO, if my agent's doing what a human was doing for $100,000 a year, my agent's now $10,000 a year, you're getting a great deal, and I'm not getting 10 grand a year as the vendor, not 240. So again, maybe a little more of a cynical view. What's your take on agents?
I think agents are going to become very important. I think that what will happen is that, as I say, at the moment, most agents don't have agency. They're not interacting with systems, but at some point they will. At some point they will interact with our tools. I think for me, the most exciting thing about agents have been around for actually a long time. If you look at the history of AI over the past 70 years, it was sort of brains, it was neural networks, and then it was multi-agent systems, and it was brains and multi-agent. So we're now going from brains, large language models, to multi-agent systems, which are brains that are able to communicate with each other and then reason and come up with new information. The example I like to use is that if Socrates is a man and all men are mortal, if I've got an agent that knows that Socrates is a man and another agent that knows that all men are mortal, by having those agents collaborate and communicate, they can infer new knowledge. They can infer that Socrates is mortal, and that's actually very powerful. That data is useful potentially for your business. So for me, the real power of agents are not just doing our jobs, but are able to actually come up with new information. What I do think will happen is that we will have agents deployed across our organization. I think that, I shouldn't say this out loud, but 30 years ago, I was writing email bombers. So I would be able to write a little tool that would send a million emails to somebody's inbox, and it would bring down their inbox. And I only did it with bad people. But the point is, if you could say to an agent, go and send me a million emails to the CEO, and it won't know that that's a stupid thing to do. So what's going to happen, I think, is agents will be given agency. They will start to cause problems. And I think a lot more governance will be put to try to understand how to make sure that they're safe and responsible. And so I think that there is a resistance around thinking of agents as a digital workforce. But I think the fact is that they should be thought about as digital employees. And one interesting thing that might happen in the future is that employees will also create digital twins of themselves. So I will be able to train an LLM based on your digital footprint, your calendar, your email, your communications. And then what you have is a workforce of digital use and agents that I can then sort of all access homogeneously. And I think that those organizations that get there first and do it right, that's a very, very powerful position to be in.
This is a weird question, but I'm going to force you to answer it. I'm a CEO,
Okay.
any size organization, small. And by the way, I think small business, as you know, has been driving really. If you look at OpenAI's revenue, I think what's been sort of amazing about this, right? And the stunning number they posted of 100 million new users added in 90 days, right? They will clearly get to 1 billion active GPT users relatively soon. So this feels like to me so far, right, that the revolution's been driven by consumers and small business as opposed to large enterprise. Presumably large enterprise now, will take it forward and pay most of the bill. We'll see. But I'm a CEO of a company of any size. How much of my day should percentage-wise or week, of my kind of my thinking time, my focus work, how much should be around AI? Is it 5%? Is it 20? I know it's industry specific, or I know context is everything, but just like how much am I as a CEO or as a team leader even really engaging in this stuff versus letting someone else figure it out today, this year, this calendar year?
Mark Reed, the CEO, again, he's all in on AI. He's probably the power user of AI in WPP. So I suspect he's thinking about AI 50% of the time. He does defer to the CTO, the CIO, and I think most organizations will try to understand kind of how they're thinking about it, which probably again 50% or more of their time. I'm the chief AI officer for WPP, so I think about it 100% of the time.
Yeah, you don't count. I'm talking about someone running. I'm talking about someone running a small business. Running a, anything. Just running a good, viable small business.
I think unless your business is going to be completely disrupted by AI, actually, I think it's just going to be a capability that's going to unlock more core productivity. So just go with the flow, buy the tools, use those tools, send faster emails, all that kind of stuff. But focus on your core business. And if your core business is not going to be disrupted by AI, then don't get distracted by it. If it is, then lean in.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. So if you're in the crosshairs of AI, that percentage of time being spent on AI is probably a lot higher. If it's not, but it's being engaged. It's doing what Toby at Shopify is doing. Yeah, I'm assuming you would recommend that. Take this shit seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but not get distracted. And yeah, Daniel, listen, I just appreciate you being sane and trying to balance the power of these technologies with the impact on our organizations.
Thank you, Ronaldo. Thank you so much. Thank you.